So here we are in our class about Mars, and I just want to show this symbol right off the bat here. So astrology charts are basically a foreign language, essentially. So each of the symbols on it for planets represents a particular type of energy, a particular idea, a particular drive in the human psyche. And and learning these symbols is important to being able to read charts. So what I would like to do is just focus on this for a moment. So Mars is, the symbol for Mars is literally the sign for like men. Like if you see like on a men's room door, sometimes they'll have this. So it's just a circle with the arrow, and I like to remember it, or when I started out, I remembered it by thinking of Mars as being very like straightforward, like go, like this is Mars. So the symbol actually portrays that pretty well. So this is a pretty easy one to remember. And I'm gonna go ahead and stop the share and hop back in here. So what is Mars? Like when we're talking about Mars in a chart, what are we talking about? It is basically anything that gets our heart rate really going. So this is a very, very primal thing in us, and it's very instinctual. So it's not something that you're going to be able to like sit down and rationalize today. All right. So, so Mars is very, very primal. So these are things like our like yang sex drive, like we want to, like we see someone and we're like yes, like that is what I want and go for it. That's a Mars thing. It's also our fight, like our ability to not only defend ourselves or others, but also attack when needed, or um, go after goals in life. So this is a really important drive for us. So what happens a lot of times in modern society is that when we're young, we're taught that it's not okay to express anger. And then we end up repressing our Mars. And the thing is, when you repress Mars, you're not just repressing like the temper tantrums, you're repressing all of it. So our ability to compete, our ability to go after goals, our ability to deal with like our confidence that we can go after something and rise to challenges, our ability to defend ourselves, and our ability, like sexual enthusiasm, like getting like really into it. That's also tied into this drive. So repressing it means that, you know, it really has a negative overall impact. And what happens when people repress anger in particular is that it ends up being really hard on their body, because when you're carrying around that energy in your nervous system, it's because it stays in your nervous system until you release it somehow. So if that stays in your nervous system, it ends up causing things like autoimmune disorders and anxiety. If it gets really severe, it can end up causing depression. That like going into chronic freeze mode is essentially what happens when we feel too disempowered. You know, people talk about hopelessness and helplessness with depression. Like when our Mars gets like just too repressed and like we feel like we just can't do anything. Like when it's very severe, it ends up turning into that. It can also cause insomnia, like, you know, going back up to the less extreme side of it, and you know, just a general lack of energy and decisiveness. So it's really important to have a good relationship with your Mars. Another thing that can happen if you don't have a good relationship with your Mars is that it can go out of control and just rampage and cause a lot of trouble sometimes. And there are people that have anger management issues um, and are overly aggressive, like overly combative when they're talking to people. So chronic fight mode is also a thing that can happen when we don't have a good relationship with our Mars. So the key to getting into a better relationship with Mars is to be in tune with your body and recognize when something is activating it. So it can be something as simple as like being frustrated or irritated. It can be something like feeling arousal when you like see a person because you're attracted to that person. It can be just feeling of like being fired up about something, like there's something you want to do and you're like, yeah, So it can also be anger, and like muscle tension, chronic muscle tension is another way that like people often hold on to their Mars energy instead of expressing it. So the key is to find healthy ways to express it, and understanding Mars in your chart is a really big, important part of this because, then like the sign that Mars is in is going to tell you how you express your Mars and the other things about it. So like, any aspects to it, what house it's in, that sort of thing are going to have an influence as well. But the main thing is the sign, or at least that's what we're going to be focusing on here tonight. So we can look at what Mars looks like in each of the signs. And I'm just trying to think, was there anything else that I wanted to mention with Mars before we get started with signs? I think the main thing is just recognizing that it's what activates us, like what puts us in action, particularly when it's, like I said, anything that gets us fired up, anything that gets our heart rate going. That is our Mars. So, all right, so Mars in Aries is a very natural placement. It's probably the most natural placement for Mars, and people with Mars in Aries need to feel like they have a challenge that they can go after in life. They have to have some kind of goal that's challenging enough that it's not too easy, but not so challenging that they lose interest in it. Because if they're like experiencing delays and like a lot of frustration related to something, sometimes they can just abruptly be like, nope, I'm done. I'm not getting any traction here. I'm like not feeling a sense of my own strength. That's what Mars and Aries likes to do. It's like meet challenges and feel strong. So this is not interesting to me anymore. I'm done with this. Like, just rage quit this project and do something else instead. So with Mars and Aries, there's kind of it's a very, like I said, it's a very natural placement. So there's some skill there with recognizing when something is too hard, when it's just hard enough, or when it's too easy. So while they can like go after something and then get it and be like, wow, like I didn't actually really want this. I kind of just wanted to go after it, like wanted something to chase. Like that can be a thing with this placement, especially like when it's more immature. The bottom line is that if there's not enthusiasm for something, it's really hard for them to get motivated to do something. So with that, it's important if they're gonna like thrive and like be healthy and feel like themselves. It's pretty important for them to have like some kind of like interesting goal that they can work towards and like really push towards. And I would say for all of the yang signs, so that's going to be your air signs and your fire signs, their Mars is pretty direct. And then for the yin, so that's earth and water, a lot of times it's less direct, and it can also be a little bit more reactive sometimes. So you know, which makes sense for yin and yang. So yang is like the outward going energy, and then yin energy tends to be more receptive. So when it comes to Mars, this is like the most masculine sign. It actually represents masculinity itself. So basically, when it comes to Mars being in a yin sign, it's gonna look a little bit different than it would look otherwise. So okay, so basically, let's talk about Taurus next. So when Mars is in Taurus, this is a placement that is very like slow and steady, very like it's a slow burn. So this isn't a very reactive Mars, despite being in a yin sign. This is a Mars that is very like self-possessed and grounded. So basically they like know what they want, and they know they're going to get it, and they work gradually towards it, and you cannot push them to move faster. You cannot push them to do something else. Like they're going to do what they're going to do. And a lot of times they have an interest in accomplishing goals that are related to like comfort and sensory pleasure. This is a big focus for Taurus just in general. And they don't mind if it takes a while. They're patient. This is Taurus. This is very stable and very like I said, self-possessed. So when it comes to Mars in Taurus, you know, people can try to push their buttons, but it's going to take a lot more than some like random person just running their mouth in order to like really get under their skin and make them blow up about something. They're not a Mars sign that's prone to blowing up as much as some of the other ones are. So if you know, if they're going to react to something, like you have to be doing something that like undermines what they've been trying to work on, or pushing them to do something that they don't want to do in a way that like you know, you just won't give it a rest, or yeah, those are the main things. And they're not going to be prone to like if you're going to try to get them enthusiastic about something to get them to act, like you're barking up the wrong tree. This is not a Taurus Mars thing. So basically it's the you know, slow and steady wins the race archetype for getting stuff done and going after things. So I think that's a like, it's not a very natural thing for Mars compared to some of the other signs, but I think that's a pretty nice one, like some longevity. And like, you know, I personally have Mars in Aries, so I can see how having a little bit more follow through and being a lot more like certain about what you want, and that thing, you know, that you want not changing that easily. Like I can definitely see some value there. So any questions about Taurus Mars before we move on to Gemini?
Nope, that sounds like me.
All right, cool. All right, so, and then I just want to say one more time, it's really important what else is happening in your chart. Like if you've got Saturn opposite Mars, it's going to come out differently than if you, or like conjunct Mars, it's going to look differently than if that's not the case. Or, you know, if it's in the 12th house, it's going to look different than if it's in the 7th house, you know. So there's definitely some differences. And yeah, so if, you know, if something's like, like, you know, you're kind of missing something here, or like, yes, but also no, in a way, like, it's likely because of other factors in the chart. And plus there's just a lot of different ways these things can manifest. maturity has a lot to do with it, and just like, you know, level of spiritual wellness and that sort of thing as well. So anyways, moving on to Gemini. This is kind of an interesting one. I think Mars in Gemini actually can kind of like snap into like I'm angry and like, you know, be like kind of big, like how do I put it? The way the anger is expressed is expressive. It's Gemini, it's expressive. They can be very expressive about their anger, but then once it runs its course, it's just like not there anymore. Like it just dissipates, and sometimes there's a little bit of like regret with it, like I'm so sorry, like kind of a thing, but it's not usually something that they're going to hang on to for a long time. And Aries can be a bit like that too, but Aries is more like a fire, like think of like a campfire maybe, where Gemini is almost more of like a flash fire, like it's not going to burn as hot. And then with Aries, I almost want to say it's more controlled with Aries, because they have a like a sense of like when sorry so depending on how mature they are, they have a sense of like how much to push, when to push, and when they need to just like go blow off steam and like not fight this particular battle. Like with Gemini, sometimes it's just like over the top and disproportionate, and then it's just like over. So that's just like the anger side of it, though. Obviously, there's a lot more to Mars than just anger. Gemini, when they're interested in doing something, when a Mars in Gemini is going for something, they're going to do it by learning a lot about it. It's a very like curious sign. So they're going to ask a lot of questions, they're going to get a lot of information, and they're going to use that information. So this is a sign that, you know, when they go for something, like they're going to learn everything there is to learn about it, or at least everything they need to learn about it. And then kind of like Aries, they might sort of just like lose interest at a certain point, but they're also very verbal in how they use their Mars. So they might enjoy banter, like banter and like debating is something that might be very fun for, almost certainly is fun for somebody with a Gemini Mars. And they also like keeping their minds busy. So when Mars, which is about activity and action, is in Gemini, it can cause a lot of like mental activity and talking a lot of verbal activity. So there's a lot of energy behind this Gemini placement. And they like to keep kind of busy too. So like they might you know, like have a lot of nervous energy and like move around a lot, or they might like play video games, something that keeps their hands busy and keeps their mind busy. So those are enjoyable things for Gemini, Mars Gemini. And then we can move on to Cancer. So Mars in Cancer is not a very natural placement. Like that's a placement that is rather uncomfortable for Mars. And people with Mars Cancer, I've actually known a fair number of people with Mars in Cancer, and like as an example, one of them described what his idea of like what a real man is. And he describes somebody that's very like gentle and very, very nurturing. So to him, like that was his concept of masculinity. And it was just kind of, you know, interesting knowing that he had Mars in Cancer, and then hearing that, it just made so much sense. And this can be a very emotionally reactive Mars sign. I would say one of the most emotionally reactive. So when they get upset about something, most of the yin signs aren't going to be super direct about it, but Cancer is pretty emotionally expressive about it when they're upset about something. And they also have a like in order for them to like really go for something, there has to be like some kind of emotional hook for them. Like they have to be emotionally involved in order to be motivated about something. So they're not someone who's going to have a real easy time like doing stuff just because they like should do it. Like they need that emotional involvement with it. So for somebody with Cancer Mars, it's important to be able to tap into that. And they can also be very protective of their loved ones. Like that's like when their Mars really shows itself. A lot of times it's when they're being protective. So or protecting themselves, and that's when they're the most like emotionally reactive about their about how they express their Mars. And it's a placement that so like I have some like placements in my chart that are like detriment and fall, like places where the planet's like not super happy in that particular sign. And I love them. And I really believe that no matter like what traditional astrology says about a placement, like it can be detriment, it can be fall, whatever, that if you know how to work with it, that it can be a positive thing, but it is just a little bit more challenging to get there for some of them than for others. And some of them are basically, it's like a less natural way for that particular planet to express itself. So you know, Cancer Mars can be a really beautiful thing. However, it can be like challenging, especially for somebody that's less mature. So then we can move on to Leo Cancer. I'm sorry, Leo Mars. So when Mars is in Leo, there's a bit of showiness with it sometimes, and there can be a concern with like being in positions of power. So like having a title can be something that's really motivating to somebody with Leo Mars. And Leo Mars can also be very like grandiose about like dramatic, theatrical about the way they express their drives, and they appreciate being appreciated. So for them, like having some recognition for like what they're doing when they're working towards something can really help to motivate them and keep them going. And they can be very principled and very loyal. So it's important to them to like really be able to get behind what they're doing, and for those areas to line up with what they're doing. And we can move on to Virgo. So Virgo Mars is interesting to me. What I see with people with Mars in Virgo is that the way Virgo is so meticulous about things and also service oriented does come through with their Mars. So like they're people that are going to be like, they're not going to be super direct about it when they're like mad at somebody, or when there's like a social issue that's upset. Like they're not typically going to be very like overtly aggressive about it. However, they will talk about the way things should be. You know, Virgo is a very discerning sign. So sometimes I find that people with Mars in Virgo don't understand why other people see them as being kind of aggressive. And it's because they're like making these general statements about the way things should be, and like not recognizing that like even though they're being indirect, like people might still take that as like, wow, he's like talking to me, you know. So like they might not like directly go after somebody, but even the way that they do it indirectly sometimes will like people will pick up on that. And you can see their Mars, it's just like a little bit more like they try to be a little bit more refined almost in how they present like what they're fighting for. They also have a lot of motivation for like making things right in a practical way, and like accomplishing practical things, or like perfecting, you could say, situations, or like improving situations from a practical perspective. So you know, they can really put a lot of work towards that. This can be a very hardworking placement. And then moving on to, excuse me, to Libra, we have another very interesting Mars placement here. So I actually have a lot of people that I know that like I went through my Astro account and like specifically looked for like every single person in my life who like ended up in my Astro account, like looked at just their Mars, and I'm like, wow, I know a lot of people with Mars and Libra. So that was kind of interesting, but they tend to not be very explosive, not be very direct, not be very aggressive. So Mars basically wants decision, wants action, wants to go, wants to make things happen. In Libra, wants to consider everybody's perspective, consider how to make sure things stay harmonious, how to be diplomatic. Wants to make, you know, they want to make sure that they're being fair. So it's a very unnatural placement for Mars. However, they can put a lot of energy and a lot of work into making things right in their like value system where fairness is a big deal. And with this placement, sometimes there's a tendency to like not want to be the bad guy. So like if something maybe needs to be done, something unpleasant, something that could make them look bad, something that could damage their like diplomatic relationships with like, you know, their social network or whatever, they don't want to necessarily be the one to do it. So sometimes they might like talk to other people and get other people to do what, you know, whatever unpleasant thing needs to be done. And they can spend a lot of time trying to make decisions sometimes too, like the indecisiveness and that Mars like forward momentum energy like don't mesh together super well. So there can be a lot of time spent thinking about things. And let's see here, Scorpio, we've got a Mars Scorpio here. So this is kind of an interesting one because traditionally Mars is a ruler of Scorpio. And then in the modern rulership system, now Pluto is. But if you look at how Mars interacts with Scorpio, it's kind of interesting. So Mars in Aries, the other sign that Mars rules, is very like, rawr, you know, like very traditional, like warrior when they are, you know, being aggressive. But Mars in Scorpio, it's more like Mars working in the shadows. So a Mars in Scorpio can be like they can be a lot more patient than somebody with Mars in Aries when it comes to like being mad or like a Mars in Aries might retaliate like right away, but a Mars in Scorpio is going to wait for just the right moment and like can wait a very long time. There's definitely some patience there that you don't see with Mars in Aries. And like just as an example, I know somebody who got mad at his employer and waited for like just the right time to quit the job to like screw them over as much as possible. So instead of just being like, that's it, I'm done, and like walking out of his shift, he like waited until everyone else in the department was on vacation and then quit without notice, and did that intentionally to, you know, to make it hurt as much as possible for them. So that's just like how a Mars in Scorpio is aggressive. There's also, it's not always like a, you know, long-term planned out like cold rage kind of thing. Like they can like in the moment like react to things sometimes, but it's not this like super passionate like they're not losing themselves to their anger like you would see with some other signs. It's more that they're it's more that they're just not having whatever's happening, and like their reaction in the moment is like, you know, just like who do you think you are? So Scorpio is concerned with power dynamics in a way that a lot of other signs aren't as much concerned about it. And it's not so much like who's in charge technically, it's about like who is actually making things happen and who's actually like influencing the outcome. And this focus on power is a pretty natural thing for Mars. So Mars in Scorpio is an intense placement. Of all of the Mars placements, this is probably the one with the highest sex drive. And so that's fun too. And when it comes to like, you know, the you know, yang sex drive intimacy thing, part of Mars in Scorpio cares a lot about intimacy. Mars in Scorpio can be very possessive, not necessarily in like a controlling, jealous sort of way, but like they want your mind, body, and soul. Like you need to be all in. That's what they're looking for in connection. And like casual sex is not something that Mars in Scorpio has much interest in. And when it comes to their goals, or like, you know, making stuff happen, like I said, Mars is a pretty natural placement in Scorpio. So So this is something that, they can know what they want. So Scorpio is fixed water, so fixed feelings. So like stable feelings, or in other words, emotional attachments. So if there's something they want, this is probably something that they deeply want. And like it, like sometimes even to the point of like longing. I think sometimes Scorpio is guilty of not recognizing the difference between love and longing. Like if it doesn't kind of hurt, like it doesn't always register necessarily for Scorpio. But that's at like lower maturity levels. I think as the Scorpio placement evolves, it does outgrow that. I have a Scorpio moon, so I'm kind of speaking from experience on that. But with Scorpio, like there's a Scorpio is about the hidden things in the darkness. So there can be a definite focus on like the dark side of longing, of going for something, of not having something. They can feel that the pain associated with emotional attachments when it's not going well, or if it's taking too long, or just in general. And when it comes to how they go for things, another thing that Mars and Scorpio is really good at is probing. This is a very probing placement. So Mars and Scorpio, like I really love Mars and Scorpio, but when it's conjunct my moon, that's kind of scary. So like moon Mars conjunctions are a more sensitive one, like of all the possible synastry conjunctions you can see. And so basically, like, a Scorpio moon is very private and Scorpio Mars is very probing. So when a Scorpio Mars is like close enough to my moon that they're like probing into like my secrets, then it's like this is uncomfortable. And like Scorpio placements are pretty intuitive as well, so they're good at it. So anyways, secretive is a very good word for Scorpio. In fact, I would say that when a Scorpio Mars is interested in somebody and going for that person doesn't necessarily always know it. Like sometimes they're secretive about their interest, even when they're like, even when they're already going for it. Not forever, like it's not a, like it doesn't stay that way. At some point, like it does come out, but they will wait for the right timing based on, one of the themes of Scorpio is a fear of unrequited love. So they're gonna like make sure that they feel like they're in a good position before exposing too much of themselves. And there needs to be some reciprocity with sharing secrets. Like you can't like get really close to a Scorpio Mars unless you're willing to like let them in. But like this is Mars, don't make it too easy. Like they need a challenge. So they want to probe and they want to get somewhere with their probing, but they don't want it to be too easy either. So, building nice intimacy is really important to somebody with Mars and Scorpio. And there's one other thing that I wanted to say about that. What was it? Oh, one of the things that Mars and Scorpio can do is they're kind of like Gemini like this. If they're like going for something or someone, they're gonna put in some effort to learn what they can. But rather than being a Gemini, kind of like, casually asking questions, or like, reading like facts about something, kind of like learning about it. It's like the deep dive, it's the probe. They're like going to try to like uncover the secrets, like Like they're interested in what's in the dark, not just what's at the surface. They want to dive in. So yeah, so that is Mars and Scorpio. Then moving on to Sagittarius. So Sagittarius is kind of an interesting Mars sign. This can be one of the hotter burning Mars signs in terms of having a temper. And so the thing about Sagittarius is that it's all about truth, like the truth, like the big picture, the grand scheme of things. And when it comes to Mars, there's a drive to like get to that truth, to find that truth. So it's not like Gemini where they're looking for like surface details and facts about something. And it's not like Scorpio where they're like, have a very focused deep dive. They're looking for the truth in terms of the big picture, like the philosophy, the religion, the like political ideology, the they do care about truth in terms of the facts of the situation too. But like they're going to be more focused on the big picture. And when they get mad, it's kind of like this righteous anger, I would say, excuse me. It's like this righteous anger where like they feel very justified in being angry because like whatever it was that they're angry about, like to them, like they've put all of this effort and work into understanding the truth of the situation. So like whatever their understanding of that is, they're pretty like no, this is what it is. And it's interesting because it is a mutable sign. Mutable signs are generally flexible, but when it comes to Mars, it kind of depends on the situation. Like if it's the side of Mars that's like, aggressive or like fighting, like I have not found Sagittarius Mars to be particularly flexible in that moment. What they can do though with this drive is, when it's not that moment, when they're like, not in fight or flight mode or, fight mode, this Mars placement like gives them a lot of energy to explore and like learn about the bigger picture, so all these themes that come along with Sagittarius, like studying philosophy or like traveling and like seeing other cultures and other ways of life. Somebody with this Mars placement can, really put a lot of energy into that kind of thing. And they also just like experiencing things just in general. Like it doesn't necessarily need to be other cultures. Like they're here to experience life. They want to see what there is to see, experience what there is to experience. So this is a Mars placement that like it's a little difficult to like stay in one place for long sometimes with this Mars placement, because that drive to see what else there is to see can sometimes come up and they can like in order for their motivation to like really be really be turned on, they need to have some they can't be boxed in too much. So another thing with this Sagittarius Mars placement is that they can sometimes be zealous. So zealotry is like religious fervor, like that's one example of it. It doesn't necessarily need to be religious. It can be like a way of life that they believe in. It can be like a political perspective or like ideology or like an economic ideology, like whatever like so they're out there looking for like the meaning of all of it, like what does it all mean, and like if they believe they found it, this is a Mars placement that can be like really fervently communicative, like trying to teach other people like, hey, this is it, this is like the way, this is this is the answer, this is the big picture. So they can put a lot of energy into doing that. And then the other perspective is that they can be kind of like fun loving and laid back and just like funny. Like Sagittarius is a very funny sign. So so it's kind of, like I said, it's kind of an interesting Mars sign. There's a lot of different perspectives and like the jokes that they make with Mars being in Sagittarius, like they could be a little, like they could have a little bit of a bite there if they're telling jokes from their Mars placement. So the Sagittarius Mars person, do you feel like that covers it pretty well? Any other questions about Sagittarius Mars? All right, cool. So then moving on to Capricorn Mars. So Capricorn is actually like traditionally considered one of the best placements for Mars, and it's kind of easy to understand why. The Capricorn is very productive, very focused on accomplishing things, and also kind of traditional. So like this is somebody that doesn't like break the rules a lot, like someone who's like it depends on what's in Capricorn. Like it's Uranus in Capricorn, like forget about it. But like for most Capricorn placements, this is something that's gonna like follow the rules and like they're gonna work with the system and learn the rules so they can play the game, kind of a thing. And when it comes to Mars and Capricorn, this is somebody that can be very, very hardworking. This is somebody that can accomplish a lot. They have patience that a lot of the other Mars signs don't have. And they're very grounded and realistic and practical about how they apply this Mars energy. So they're somebody that like can just really do a lot, basically. And it's not a particularly sensitive placement. Like that is one of the drawbacks of it, even though it's even though Mars is exalted in Capricorn, there's still some drawbacks with it. And it's also a placement that like I kind of wonder, like, do they get enough sleep? Like do they rest enough? Like it can, like all that energy, like I said, it can be very hardworking. So there can be a lot of just focus on having the side hustle on top of like whatever 2 or 3 big things they're working towards right now. So this is a placement that they're gonna be trying to accomplish stuff a lot. And then it's also kind of a good place in terms of like if Mars is the warrior planet, like a Capricorn Mars could be a good soldier because it's a yin sign, so it's traditional, it's not progressive, it's gonna follow suit, and it's going to for the most part, it's going to try to like rise through the ranks if it's in a situation like using the military, or you could even use like a corporate analogy. So military analogy, corporate analogy, this is a placement that is going to try to rise through the ranks, but they're gonna, not shake things up too much. They're gonna do what they're supposed to do. So an obedient soldier, you could say. And that can be different depending on what else is happening. Like, if it's conjunct Uranus, or, if there are other placements that, shake things up a little bit, then they may not be the obedient soldier. I'm not saying like every single person with Mars in Capricorn is going to be that way. So it does depend a little bit where it is. But generally speaking, that's what you're going to see with Mars in Capricorn. And then Mars in Aquarius. I just realized that we've been doing this for an hour. Oh my goodness. Time flies when you're talking about astrology. So Mars in Aquarius is another interesting placement because this is a placement that is interestingly a little bit like Virgo, but they're more, so like Virgo is service oriented and Aquarius is very humanitarian. So both of them are looking out for other people, but when it comes to Aquarius, it's more of like the world, like humanity in general, or like, the society in general, usually like humanity or the world, rather than Virgo being more focused on just like people that are immediately around them. But in order for an Aquarius Mars to like really tap into their like Mars energy, like they need to feel like pretty good about how it's going to impact humanity in general. Like they're going to need to tap into that. Like it's a fixed air sign, so it's very mentally focused and it's social in nature. So they need to tap into their ideals and their idealism in order to get really fired up about something. And so this can be like a social justice warrior kind of placement, depending on like what else is going on in the chart. And it's very progressive, like they are trying to reform, and they are not Capricorn. They're not like trying to be traditional and like do things the right way. They're here to shake things up. They want to make a difference. They want to change things. So so this is a Mars placement that's going to look kind of weird, going to be, more unique and individual and, revolutionary. And then Pisces, this one is so interesting. This might be the most interesting one because Pisces is the most yin sign of all of the signs, and Mars is the most yang planet. So when you put Mars in Pisces, you've got it's interesting. It's kind of a meandering sort of Mars, like very indirect. What I have found with this placement is that if somebody gets angry at them and yells at them, they can actually absorb that anger and then like take it and then like release it on somebody else. So for somebody with a Mars Pisces, it's really important to be careful what kind of Mars input they're getting from their environment, from the people around them, because they're a sponge. They can soak up that energy, and that can work for or against them. So if it's Mars energy that they appreciate, It's Mars energy that helps them get motivated, get things done, make decisions, not just like daydream about what they're gonna do, but like actually take action. This can be a very like healthy influence in their life. And it's not just like people around them, like if they're watching the news, if they're like listening to motivational speakers, that kind of thing, like these other influences and just the energy of the collective in general really can have a pretty profound impact on them too. So it's important for them to manage their surroundings and their intake of whatever whatever's around them. And news and TV and what they read, that sort of thing. And
Both my mom and my sister have Mars and Pisces.
does that
And
resonate?
yeah, the part about like taking it in and then exploding, absolutely. Because Sam, I'm talking. They're both when they get angry, it's like they don't get angry very often and they're gentle people, but when they do get angry, it's like if you get in a fight with them, it just like explodes all over you and you're just like, whoa, you just said some really nasty stuff that I didn't even know you were capable of saying, you know what I mean? So yeah, I try not to fight with either of them.
Yeah, I bet.
So yeah.
Yeah, I had it was like somebody that I worked with who was just a very chill, laid back, easygoing guy just in general. But if he dealt with an angry client and then if he dealt with an angry client and like I was involved somehow, like it would end up coming back on me. Like he would not only absorb whatever anger came his way, but he'd actually like add to it. Like he would like it would get even stronger. Like when he'd like come back to me and
Yeah, it's like a slow rolling rock down a hill. And
yeah.
then it just like kind of accelerates and then it like ends and you're just like, ah. Also, my mom is like, I've never seen anyone on earth as mad at Trump as she is. And like, she just can't tear herself away from the news. And she just like perpetually stays angry at him. And I'm just like, it's like overwhelmingly exhausting to hear her talk about him. I don't think she realizes it, but it's like she's just so angry all the time at him. It's weird. I mean, it's not weird, I understand, but like it's just a lot,
It's because she's absorbing the outrage in the collective. She's mad because so many other people are mad.
Yeah, that makes sense. That she really is like offended in like a deep way. Yeah.
Yeah, well, of course. But it's because there are a lot of people in the collective that are. So like that's the thing with Pisces, the merging and the oneness. They don't have a good sense of separation between themselves and others in the collective. So yeah, like she is genuinely feeling that, but it's because she's the collective. Like she's experiencing herself as the collective. So
is that all Pisces placements or just Pisces Mars?
feel that like that sensitivity. That's why oppositions are really important in astrology, and we need whatever's opposite of a placement to balance it out. And the reason that Virgo balances out Pisces is because Virgo is very discerning and very meticulous and will get things right. And Pisces is sensitive to what's around them, that having things right around them and not having too much clutter and just being discerning about like who is impacting them and how things are going, like that's something that a Pisces really needs. Otherwise it's just too much. It's bad.
That's really interesting to me because my late husband, his
Please,
moon
I
was in
can't
Virgo
be
and my moon was in
Please, I
Pisces.
can't be
My moon is
quiet.
in Pisces.
Please, I
And we
can't
worked
be
really
quiet.
well together.
Please, I can't.
Yeah, it's a nice combination. Oppositions can be really wonderful. Like they can be challenging at times because you're coming from completely opposite perspectives, but they can really balance each other out nicely if you know how to work with them. So, if there are any other questions, I'll take those now. I did not mean to talk as long as I did. I was planning on this being a half-hour thing, and I want to respect everybody's time. But any other questions before we wrap up? All right. Well, thank you for coming. And this is so much fun. Next week, I will do Venus. So I will see you next week. And then Tuesday, I'm just going to go over the same material that I went over tonight. So it's just
Tell me.
giving, yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Talking to you, little one. You're welcome. So yeah, see you next week. Thank you very much.